We're gonna try something new today on the channel. I haven't made one of these videos yet, but I've been enjoying these types of videos on YouTube, and that is just the commentary style videos where the creator shares TikToks or Instagram Reels, short form videos, and then adds their commentary to that video. I have seen these across consumption and anti-consumption, overconsumption, underconsumption, and I've seen these like being done in the personal finance space. So I am excited to try out this format. I am going to use this format video to talk about the things that interest me. So that'll be everything from first gen to personal finance to sustainability and how we are consuming as individuals. If you're new here, hello, my name is Danielle. I make videos on my personal finance journey, my journey towards financial independence, and really how I'm trying to achieve financial independence while also still enjoying my life. So if that sounds like something that interests you, hit the subscribe button, notification bell so you know when a new video comes out. Today's video, like I said, is going to be a new format for me. It's going to be a commentary video. So I decided to make this first one tailored towards the first gen content creation that's out there. I started creating content from this first gen lens, right? I started on Instagram, my blog at the time as First Gen Money, really talking about how I myself was navigating entering the corporate space, how I was navigating managing my personal finances from the lens of being first gen, never having been taught formally how to do this. And so now, fast forward to, like 7 years later, I started this in 2017. I started creating content as a first gen in 2017. And I have just seen how much there is out there, how many amazing creators have come into the space, and how people are just continuing to share their journeys and making us feel less alone. And so I wanted to make this first commentary video on first gens and what people are putting out on TikTok related to being first gen. So let's go to the first video that I found on TikTok.
The other day, my therapist boldly reminded me of why I pay her. I was telling her that as a first-generation Latina, I am sometimes burdened by feeling like I am walking a road, trailblazing a road that is so unfamiliar, so new, and it's stressful to feel like I'm just now figuring out what it means to be Latina in corporate America. And I told her that when I'm in these board meetings and when I'm talking to my coworkers, and I feel like I have to lose a part of myself, like I have to lose a part of my culture because their names don't sound like mine. You know, our childhoods weren't the same. And I started getting really emotional because I don't want to lose that part of myself ever. And you know what this woman told me? You feel like you have to lose that part of yourself or lose that about you because you didn't have those examples instead of becoming those examples. This is why I pay her. She, in that moment, made me realize that I don't have to lose a thing about me and what makes me Latina and what makes me Mexican and what makes me me. In fact, I can be those examples. I can be the example that I wish I'd seen when I was little. Hearing that kind of healed a part of me as well, because I don't ever want to be someone who becomes whitewashed in order to fit in. Fuck that. Also, it melted my heart because thinking that little girls in my neighborhood where I grew up could potentially look up to someone like me, like that just is so humbling, you know what I mean? Maybe I'm gonna get my period. Being first gen is such a unique path, and anyone else who is on it, I am with you, sister. I am with you, brother. This shit is not easy at all. We are having to blend cultures constantly, keeping our roots, but also knowing that we're fully American because, well, we grew up in Western culture, and we're creating a space for ourselves. We're creating a fucking spot at the table that is not there for us. There is no spot at the table reserved for us. We are making that spot for ourselves. And this is not easy. It takes a toll on us, but fuck, we're doing this for the generations after us so that they don't have to carve this path, so that their walk is easier than ours was. Get yourself a really good therapist, especially if you can find one of color. I tell you, she's an angel.
Okay. A lot of things to unpack in that first video. First part of that is the therapy component. She is spot on. Find yourself a therapist, and finding yourself a therapist who relates to your story, to your upbringing is not an easy task, especially as a first-gen Latina. I know that I went on several different therapy, dating. It's dating, right? You go to a therapist, you're like, doesn't quite get it. You go to another one, also doesn't quite get it. It literally is a process of finding a good therapist who can understand you fully. And I think that is very challenging when there are such few Latinx therapists, psychologists out there. And so my journey too to finding a therapist was not easy. I had a lot of trial and error. So I think that is number one takeaway here is find yourself a good therapist who understands you, because if you don't, they will be giving you advice or telling you things that you yourself are not going to relate to, are not going to feel like resonate, and then you might even be turned off by therapy. I know that there were moments when I was like, well, maybe this isn't for me because she's just telling me that I need to do X, Y, and Z, but that's like not possible because of my, it just didn't add up, and I started to feel like, is it right for me to continue with therapy? Is therapy for me? It is. We just need to find our therapist. And when I think about the first thing that she's talking about with blending cultures and going into a corporate space and feeling like, I don't really belong here, or like I need to whitewash myself so I can fit in, I think about a very specific event that happened at my first full-time job. I remember the whole time I was at this job, I felt completely out of place. I felt like, I was the only Latina in the room. Nobody else looked like me. And I already just felt like, what am I doing here? And I went out to happy hour with my coworkers because I knew, and I had heard, and I was reading books about how you have to connect with your colleagues and go to those after hours and, socialize, because this is your network. You're building your network. And I go to this happy hour, and it's really just a handful of us. And I'm sitting there, they're having drinks. I think I might have had one drink. I don't even know. But I remember the whole time it was an out-of-body experience. And I'm like, they're talking about all these things that I had no clue what they were talking about. And I just was silent the whole time. I was silent because I was unsure of how to contribute, what I had to add to the conversation. And I didn't want to come off like I didn't know something, or like I just didn't have the same experiences that they did. And then one of my colleagues turned to me, and he was a colleague from a different office because it was an international company. He turned to me and he said, Danielle, you've been very quiet this whole time. Are you okay? And I remember hearing that and being like, oh, somebody noticed that I haven't said a word. And I am so uncomfortable now that it's been pointed out. But yeah, I'm not good because I don't feel like I know what the hell to add to this conversation. And so I said, yeah, I'm just really tired, so I'm going to head home. And we were right by Penn Station. So I just took the train, and the whole ride over, I'm like, I don't fit in. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't get it. How can I fit into this culture? And I think about that because I'm like, wow. This colleague of mine just pointed out that I was silent. But throughout the whole happy hour, nobody tried to get me into the conversation. Not that anybody is responsible for me being silent, no. But I just felt like it really showed me that I was not at the right place. And I had already been wanting to switch jobs. And when I went to the next company, after I left this employer, I entered in the tech industry, and I actually went to work for a mission-driven startup that was helping Black and Latinx students get hired at these corporate jobs, hired in tech, hired in corporate. And I felt for the first time, because the team of 30 of us were all diverse. We all, it wasn't just one type of people. We had people from every culture represented in the office. I felt for the first time, wow, I belong here. Wow, I can raise my hand and have and say my opinions. So I think it really matters for us to, one, like find the spaces where we feel comfortable, but two, also thinking about, how after I left that job, I started to get more involved and volunteering for a first gen nonprofit, because I wanted to give back to the other first gens who might be finding themselves in that position when they enter corporate. And so, yeah, just remember that you can be that example. Okay, so let's look at the next TikTok.
I call it the undocumented Latino trauma, or the just Latino trauma. So I come from a Latino immigrant family. There was no such thing as taking vacations. There was no such thing as missing a day from school. And there was no such thing as aspiring for something because I should be grateful for what I have. Let's put it this way. If I went to an interview, I would come back and I would say, no, I didn't get the job because they didn't offer me what I wanted. She'd be like, we should have taken it because you have nothing now. Like, it's better to have little than have nothing. And the thing is, like, that gets engraved in our head so much that we're so used to just saying yes to everything without realizing we're not taking up the space that we truly deserve. We come here for the American dream. In return, we just end up surviving because we need to just take a job to pay the rent and pay the bills and have food on our table, right? But we never really get to aspire for what we really want. Maybe my brother wanted to be an architect. Maybe my sister wanted to be a journalist, or whatever. And it's just like, you don't do those things because you have to survive right now. And right now becomes a lifetime.
His specific example about the job interview reminded me of all the ways that in job offers that I've received in my career, I have always, anytime I bring it up to my parents, they're just like, don't push back. Just accept it. Just accept it. You don't want it to get rescinded. You don't want them to say, never mind, we take it back. And it's that scarcity that exists in just taking what is given to us. I don't go to my parents to say, hey, should I negotiate? What are your thoughts on that? Because I know for them, it's going to be just accept what you've been given and be grateful for it. And so anytime I've gotten a job offer, my first job offer for the company I was just talking about, I took the phone call and I had no idea what to do. They told me, yeah, your salary is going to be $45K, this and that, what do you think? And I knew then, or maybe I didn't, I just had no idea how to respond, but I was just like, I have to think about it. Send me paperwork. And I hung up. I was going upstate. Hung up the phone, I probably sounded excited, I probably didn't, but when I got upstate, so 2 hours later, I got the offer and it was bumped from 45 to 50. And the recruiter said, I was able to get you 5K more. I felt like me taking a pause and not accepting on the phone was what pushed her to be like, we need to make this more exciting for her. But I didn't know then. What I know now is that like all that stuff is negotiable, right? I didn't know that I could push back and for my first offer be like, how about this instead? I didn't know that. And it's something that I've had to learn. It's something that I've had to get uncomfortable learning to ask for what I want, even if that's more, even if, maybe they're going to be like, oh, she's asking for too much. We can't worry about that. And that I think is part of, having grown up with that scarcity of you have to just accept what you're given because you might not have it again, or they might take it away from you. So just be quiet and accept it. Calladita te ves más bonita. It's that thing that we keep hearing. So yeah, I am currently navigating this. There's not going to be more for me if I don't take action now mindset as I'm thinking about moving out, as I'm thinking about, okay, if I don't buy in 2024, will I ever be able to buy? Because house prices are just going to increase. So I see how these scarcity, limiting beliefs keep us in that survival mode. And I'm trying to very much take myself out of there. And I feel like through negotiating, through asking for what I want, I've slowly like made myself uncomfortable so that I can get comfortable having those conversations that our family, our parents might not have been used to having. So that's my take on that. Let's go to the next TikTok.
I call it Latin guilt. And I feel like our parents, our culture has guilted us into staying home as long as possible, because why am I going to go pay rent in an apartment when I could be using that money to help out at home? And I feel like I still have that feeling. Like anytime I leave for a trip or something, I'm always like, God, my parents would have loved to be here doing what I'm doing. But my parents feel so almost like proud that I'm living my life.
The more I grow up, the more I understand my mom and like
The sacrifice.
my tias and everything.
Yeah.
Like just moving across the country, because they moved to a different country.
And I didn't speak the language.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And with a kid, with me.
No.
The guilt. Oh, that is real. That is real. I moved out of my house for the first time when I was 17 to go to college. I went to UMass Boston for 1 year. So I went from New Jersey to Boston. And I just remember my parents, my dad specifically, had such a hard time with it. Like, why are you going so far? You know, they took it very personal. It was a personal attack on them as parents. And even when I moved back to New Jersey but went to a school that was 45 minutes away from my home, they were like, why don't you just commute? And they didn't understand like why I was living out of the house. And finally, when I graduated college and I moved back home full time and I was working and I met my partner, my now husband, and we decided 2 years into our relationship, 2 years into me graduating and living at home, that we were gonna move into our own apartment together in Brooklyn. I remember my dad was so upset with my decision that he refused to help me move into my new apartment. He was not willing to accept or understand that I had chosen to move out of my parents' house where I was, paying very minimal. I was helping out with utility bills, but I didn't have like I was going to pay over $1,000 on my own, my half with Ari. I wasn't paying $1,000 in rent. And so he was very confused as to why I was doing this, why I was moving into a place with my boyfriend who I wasn't engaged to, who I wasn't planning on marrying at the time, or we had no plans of marriage. And it was just a very unheard of concept. And he was very upset about that. And it really took a lot of me to say, you know what, this is something I want to do because I want to do it. And you might not agree with it. You might not understand it, but this is what the reality is. And they just couldn't understand how I could be paying so much in rent when they had all these bills that they had to account for and that I could be using my paycheck to help them out with. And yeah, I think they still have a hard time with that. And she mentions, when she goes out to trips and stuff, she always feels like, oh, well, my parents would love to be able to do this. And every time I take a trip, for instance, we just did a girls, sisters, aunt trip this year. We went to Amsterdam. And the whole time before, I was feeling bad and feeling guilty that, oh, my mom would love to go to Amsterdam and we didn't invite her, or, oh, it's going to hurt her feelings that we're going without her. That it's almost hard to see, like, should you go or should you not go? Because you don't want to make somebody feel bad. And I notice myself feeling that way a lot every time I travel. Like, oh, my mom especially is going to feel bad that she's not included, or, I wish that I can take her, or maybe. Yeah, so I don't think that my parents necessarily are happy for me to have these experiences. They are, but I know that sometimes they will make comments that are a little bit, maybe they're a bit bitter that I'm able to do this. So it's something that I am working through not feeling guilty about, not feeling like it's my responsibility to make sure that they have these experiences, because it's not. But I would like, if I think about my rich life, I'm like, yeah, I would love to have the rich life that involves being able to pay for my parents to come on vacation with me. I would love that. I'm not in that place right now. And so that's why a lot of my guilt that comes with when I take a vacation is I know my parents are at home watching me have this experience, and I feel bad that they haven't been able to have that. And I think part of it too is my parents had me when they were 18 and 19, or 19 and 20. And so they have all of their teenage 20s were raising my sister and I. And so they never really had their youth. And I feel like, I feel like it's my fault that they weren't able to enjoy their youth. It's getting deep here, but it's not my fault. I don't know why that made me so emotional. But anyway, we're going to move over to the next TikTok. Oh man. Did we all have that advisor? Did we all have that same advisor? Yeah, I have this exact experience. I remember senior year, you're looking at what colleges you're gonna go to. And to be honest, I knew that I had to go to college, but because my parents never went to college, my sister wasn't going to college. She wasn't going directly to a 4-year school. She started at community. I didn't know how to approach applying to schools. I didn't know you had to take the SATs. I didn't know what the SATs were. So I started all that process really late. And I remember my guidance counselor, I went to him, I was telling him what I wanted, and he was like, I think for you, you're better suited for a 2-year community college. Start there. Why don't you do that? And I'm like, but I want to go to Boston University. Yeah, but maybe let's just start with the 2-year college. And I remember feeling like, why the hell is he telling me that I should dream down? I'm dreaming. I want all these things. Why is he telling me that that's too much? And I remember I didn't feel good about that. So I shared it with my friend, who told me, oh, you know what? That's the same guidance counselor that this boy had. And guess what? He was another student of color. And I was like, why is he telling us that we should conform with a community college? And now there's nothing wrong with going to a community college. Like, it's affordable, probably would have had less student loan debt, but you're telling me I'm telling you my dreams. It's not like I was telling you, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I knew that I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. I knew I wanted to go to this university. And yes, maybe my grades had a component to it, but I'm just like, did you not think I could handle it because I was a Latina? I don't know. I saw that and I was like, I guess we had the same guidance counselor. But here I am. I went to a 4-year university. I graduated on time. And I did it. Yeah, I didn't get into BU both times that I applied, but it's fine. It's fine. Anyway, yeah, that was the first commentary style video. Hopefully you enjoy this style. Let me know what you think. I will be making more of these on topics that I care about and I am really interested in exploring. So if there is some topic you want me to cover based on what you're seeing on TikTok, because honestly, I don't go on TikTok at all, really. But I have enjoyed these video formats, and I'm like, oh my God, let me see what people are saying on TikTok. So I loved finding and coming across these creators and knowing that there is now a lot more voices and people sharing their experiences growing up being first gen Latina in corporate, in tech. Like, we are in these spaces, and it's wonderful that now it's on our phone and we can come across and be examples for people because it's all accessible. So that's why I started this channel. That's why I started creating content in 2017, because I wanted to let other first-gen Latinas know that we are out here, we can build wealth, we can do this stuff. So if you like this, please subscribe, like this video, and I will see you all next week.